Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're gonna do some very fun bass fishing, and that's gonna be using a Texas rig, but flipping a heavy Texas rig in some deep grass. We're gonna show you how to fish some offshore grass, some deeper grass lines, topped out grass. It's a technique that plays up here in the Northeast a ton. If you fish these northern fisheries that have grass that gets topped out, a lot of times that's the cover that those summer bass live on. They use it as a canopy, they use it as an ambush point. We'll show you some of that while we're out there on the water today, but we're gonna break down all the rod, reel, line, gear you need to do this. We're gonna go out on the water, we're gonna show you how and where to fish this thing and have you catching some big summer bass on this technique right here. You get to set the hook on them hard. It is the equivalent of punching up here in the Northeast. So not a lot of times we get matted hydrilla or stuff like that that they get down in Florida, or those hyacinth mats where you can punch and catch big fish and you get to hit them hard on that heavy braid and reel them in. Well, this is the way to do it up here in the Northeast, and I've been doing it for many years. If you got hot summer days, you have grass that grows out 8, 10, 12 foot of water but tops out at the surface or just below the surface and has a hard edge, there will be fish on it as long as you got some bait around. That's a place that they really like to hang out here in the Northeast. So let's break down the rod, reel, and line setup, and then we'll head out on the water. So right here, I have the Cashin Icon. This is the flipping series. This is actually a counterbalanced rod, so it has a weight in the butt. When you pick this thing up, it feels super heavy in your hand, but when you actually hold the rod and reel like you're supposed to, it is balanced so that the rod is perfectly balanced in your hand and the tip wants to stay up. If you flip a lot, your tip will want to nosedive because these rods have so much backbone and tip to them that they'll start to want to go down, and you want to keep your tip up while you're flipping, so you're fighting it all day and it's very fatiguing on your body. This thing has a weight in the back and it feels super natural in your hand to be able to hold that and the tip stay up, and it makes it a lot easier to fish with throughout the day. This thing is a 7'6", fast, heavy action. It's rated for 12 to 65 pound braid, but more importantly, this thing's rated for up to 1.5 ounces weight. This thing has a lot of meat behind it, and that's very important for what we're gonna be doing. You can do this with just like your standard 7-foot heavy jig rod. I've done it in the past, 7-foot heavy jig rod with like 20-pound fluorocarbon, and you'll be able to get by doing that. You will start to notice though, you might lose a couple fish here and there. Your losing fish percentage will go way down if you use this setup right here. Not exactly this setup. Obviously, if you want to support the channel and buy the Cashin rod or any of the links down below, I would appreciate that and you'd be helping out the channel a ton. But if you have something very similar to this, you want to use very heavy gear, and it's going to seem way overkill, but when you see where we're catching these fish from and you get to the cover that you're catching these fish out of, you're going to need that to get the fish out. So on that rod, I have a Corrado MGL 7.5 to 1 or 7.4, I don't know, 7.4 to 1 gear ratio. Anything in the 7s is fine. You could even go to an 8 if you really wanted to, because you're gonna make a lot of flips. You're flipping in, reeling up, flipping again, and that's it. You're just flip, 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 flip all day long, and you cover a ton of water doing that. I have straight 65 pound braid on here. You need the braid to rip through the grass, especially if you have some really thick grass. When you set the hook on these fish, you're gonna have to rip them out of the grass, especially because they'll be 10 foot down in the water, can get you wrapped up down there before you can even get them up to the surface. And some of these fish will be 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 pounders in this grass in the summertime. So you gotta horse on them and get them up. It doesn't seem natural, but it's a lot of fun. They'll still eat it. And this is only like 17-pound test diameter. If you're still worried about the fish seeing the braid, one, I wouldn't, because it's a reaction bite, so they're either gonna eat it or they're not. It's gonna fall on their head and they're gonna bite it immediately. They're not looking at the braid, but if you're still worried about that, you can tie a fluorocarbon leader on there. Just use a really good leader knot, because you're gonna set the hook super hard and you don't wanna snap that leader knot. It's just an extra point of weakness, so that's why I don't use that leader knot there. You're gonna need that heavy rod to get this hook through the fish's mouth as well too. So I use an absolute gaff of a hook on here. This is a 6th Sense Ox flipping hook. It's a 5/0, biggest hook they make. It's super thick wire. I put a 6th Sense prawn on here, 3/4 ounce weight, and a bobber stop to keep that all pegged together. 3/4 is my favorite size to use, but you can go to 1 ounce or even more if you need to get it down in that grass quickly. What you don't want to do is go too light on your weight, like a half could do it, but you don't want to go down to like a 3/8 or something. One, it's going to take forever for that bait to get down there to the bottom, so that's what's going to create the reaction bite. So if your bait's taking forever to get down there, you're not going to be able to cover as much water and move as quickly. And the other thing is, this thing's going to fall, and if you have a 3/8, it might wrap over a leaf on a piece of grass, and it might just hang there up in the water column, and it never made it down to where the fish are. If you throw this 3/4, it's gonna bomb straight through there and just rip through all the grass all the way down to the bottom, land right in front of this fish's face, and they're either gonna eat it or they're not. So that's the setup. It seems kind of specific, but when we get out on the water here, we'll show you how to fish it, where you fish it, and it'll all come together and make sense. So let's head out on the water, use all this equipment, and catch us some bass. All right, so now that we talked about the setup for this Texas rig, we got our heavy rod, we're ready to do some flipping. Let's go ahead and rig our bait up. So with the straight shank hook, I just go ahead, feed it right through the front there until I get to the bend. I pop it out the belly. I'll go ahead and bring it around. And the biggest thing with a flipping hook is you do not want to tear the channel in the bottom where your bait's actually going to sit on the keeper. So I keep it upside down, I push it all the way over the collar, and then I'll flip it around and pull it back into that keeper like that. Then I'll line up my hook here, and I'll go ahead and bury that nice and tight into that plastic. I want that hook deep in that plastic. We're flipping a lot of heavy grass. I don't want that hook coming out. That bait will sit right up against that hook keeper and stay still. And then we'll pull down our bobber stock, and we're all lined up and ready to fish. The last thing I do is I just break apart the claws here. We're ready to go. So this technique is like my favorite way to fish in the summer. It's a lot of fun. You catch a lot of big fish doing it. You might not catch a ton of fish, but a lot of the bites you get are gonna be big. They're gonna thump it hard like a jig bite, and you're gonna get to set the hook really hard and winch them in the boat and have a lot of fun catching them that way. So the way that I'm gonna do this, you literally just troll down the bank and make a flip 10, 15, 20 feet away from the boat. It depends on how far. I'll just find where the grass tops out. This is a very grass heavy bait. You're basically trying to find that grass edge in 8 to 12 foot of water and flip that deep grass and get a reaction bite. So that 3/4 ounce weight falls super fast. It falls right down in their face on the edge of that grass. They'll be sitting there waiting to ambush bait. It falls in front of their face and they just go ahead and grab it real fast. That's the way that it's gonna go. So you just go ahead and flip it down there. I'll let it sink all the way to the bottom. If I don't get bit on the initial fall, I do a couple little hops and then I just reel it right back in and make another cast. This is all about making as many casts as possible. They're gonna eat it on the first fall or the first hop, and that's it. So I let that thing hit the bottom, hop, hop, nothing, maybe another hop. That was not a bite, I was stuck in the grass. Sometimes you'll get it stuck up in the grass, so you can see my peg slid away from my weight there, so it probably wrapped around a grass stem and made it feel like a bite. So like I said, making a lot of casts, that's the key with this. Just keep flipping this thing and flipping it and flipping it and cover a lot of water. A lot of times what you'll find is 5 or so bass in one area. So you'll flip a lot of grass and catch nothing, and then you'll catch 2 or 3 in like a 100-yard stretch. Then you'll catch a lot of nothing, and then 2 or 3 in a 100-yard stretch. A lot of casting, but it's a lot of fun and it's definitely worth it. So we'll get to fishing here and see if we can catch a couple more.
When I was like up real shallow where those little fish were,
there's one. No, he's tiny. And it's a rock bass.
It's a ugly looking rock bass, dude.
This technique catches everything. Usually it works here too. There we go. Got that one. It was an awkward hook set, but I didn't want to take your head off. But that's how you catch them, flipping this deep grass like this. You give them a good hard hook set and you can just wind them right in. They come right up in the boat. And you can see that hook gets them really good, pegs them right behind the face there. They are not going to come off. 99% of the fish you set the hook on with this technique will come in the boat. It's a lot of fun fishing it this way. And if you guys enjoyed today's video and want to see a video about how to rig up the Texas rig, make sure everything's proper and ready to go for this, check this video out right here. We're gonna go ahead and let him go, and we'll see you on the next one. So hit that subscribe button down below, and thanks for watching.